Kia ora, everybody. Those of you that have listened to the Pete Evans podcast would have heard me say that the person that recommended him to me was the bloke I'm speaking with right now, Adam Kavanagh. He's a bit of a bushman from Australia, but we'll get to that part. Adam, what did you get up to on the weekend, brother?
I've just been knife making, actually, like from start to finish, like the whole process, making a big knife out of a car leaf spring, actually, with a forge and the whole process from start to finish. So yeah, it's been pretty good.
Nice, mate. And what's the biggest challenge?
Not cracking the knife. Like that's actually the hardest bit. So like obviously a leaf spring's curved, and then you got to heat it just right, and like obviously you whack it with a big hammer and that, and the whole time it like you have to have it the right temperature, or if you smack it at the wrong temperature, you'll just crack it in half. So yeah, it's basically the whole time you're just making sure you have it nice and hot so you don't break the damn things. About it, really.
Nice, mate. And so how does that feedback, and if you do crack it, is that end of what you're doing, or can you salvage it back?
Well, actually, the really big knife that I'm making at the moment, the last hit I did with the hammer, I cracked the handle and I just stopped. So like, luckily I was pretty much done, and it kind of sanded out. So I was pretty lucky, but I think, yeah, like really, I was just lucky that where I cracked it was right on the handle. But yeah, I don't know what you do. I think if you cracked it, like you can possibly heat it up again, and there is a process where you can join the metal back together. But I think really you definitely don't want to. You just don't want to crack it.
Nice, brother. So how do you start knife making? Where did that come from? Obviously, you want a big knife.
Yeah. Well, actually, I started out wanting to make a really small, maybe like 4-inch skinning knife, and then it turned into like this full Crocodile Dundee Bowie that I've made now. So I really don't know, but like maybe making a knife probably wasn't something that I'd particularly be into, but my brothers are always getting into new cool hobbies, and my brother actually made his own forge and like everything, actually anvil forge. He made all his own like gear. So he he offered to show me how to make a knife, so I jumped at the chance. And yeah, so
nice. How many siblings have you got, and have you guys always been sort of ingenuitive? I don't know what that word is, but into making things.
Yeah, I've got 2 brothers and a sister, and well, my sister included. Actually, we've always been into like outdoorsy stuff, building everything from scratch. So yeah, making knives was just another step that we were going to get into. But yeah, so they've always been into that, like making everything from scratch, whether it be knives or tools or clothes, even everything. So pretty handy bunch of kids.
Now we'll get to that, the making clothes. And whereabouts do you fit in?
Oh yeah. I'm the oldest one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
the trailblazer.
Yeah, well, it's funny enough. I guess I'm meant to be leading the example, but anyway, I don't get into that joke. But
no, good. So who is Adam Kavanagh for those out there that don't follow your turtle featuring Instagram?
Adam Kavanagh is just well, I would say a typical Aussie bloke, but maybe not anymore. I guess I'm just a bloke out there trying to find the answers to health and happiness and all that sort of stuff, I guess. And just a bloke that's ever evolving and just, yeah, trying to find the best way to live and the healthiest way to live.
Nice, mate. So let's get into that. You sent me through some details for an interview you'd done for some outdoor survival stuff, and on it you said that you had a bit of a health crisis. What sort of happened there, brother?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess I'll get into the deep end of it.
Yeah.
Like I've always grown up in coal mining towns, and I guess anyone from Australia, that lives in the remote areas will sort of get like what that's like to live in. And I myself ended up becoming a coal miner, and I was probably a coal miner for about 9 years. And anyway, I guess when I was about 26, my health took a bit of a turn for the worst, and like, not to knock doctors or anything, like I'm not going to go down that road, but I sort of, I got really sick and had like a rapid heart rate, and I've never had depression or mental health issues or anything in my life, and then all of a sudden, like, just woke up one day and had like just a whole list of just weird things wrong with me, and I'd never experienced depression or anxiety before, so it was a pretty big shock. And went to the doctors, and they kind of, there's a bit of a funny story that the fella said to me, he's like, "Oh, is there a lady in your life?" And I said, I said, "Don't worry about me." I said, "Ladies don't give me stress." And anyway, it ended up turning out that I had an overactive thyroid.
Yep.
Or hypothyroidism. And anyway, so they didn't really recommend any real fix or anything. They kind of just, being a young fella, that it might just have been a one-off event. And anyway, I got sick a few more times, and went to the doctors, and sort of never really found an answer. And at the end, basically, with your thyroid, it came down to really two options. It was either live the rest of my life on medication, or have an operation on my thyroid and hope that would work. But I was never really into holistic health or anything alternate like that. But I just something in me knew that a pill wasn't going to be the answer, or like to be cut open wasn't the answer, because they never actually told me why. Like, they never tried to work out why I was sick in the first place. So I try to stop waffling on. But anyway, I ended up just saying stuff it, and I just started researching some thyroid, just Googling thyroid health and any alternate way to fix it, or just any way to fix it. At the time, I wasn't worried about any alternate health. Like, anyway, I was happy to fix it anyway. But I stumbled across a book. It's got a crazy long name. Why does my thyroid results say I'm healthy, or something? But anyway, I read the book, and anyway, I guess in the book it didn't call it paleo, but it just said a more primitive caveman diet was a possible way to fix thyroid health, because I don't know if many people know, but apparently gluten is like one of the biggest. Gluten is really problematic if you have thyroid issues, because like your thyroid and a gluten protein molecule, I don't know what you want to call it, but they kind of can look the same. So when your body kicks off an autoimmune attack, it can kind of, through like gluten sensitivity, your body will start attacking itself.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's sort of recommended cutting out gluten and going on a more primitive caveman diet. And funnily enough, like everyone tells you, like, oh, be careful eating veggies and meat and eating healthy, like, it could hurt you. So even my doctor told me to be careful. He said, honestly, he said, be really careful eating paleo. Like, he's like, you really don't know what could happen to you. So I was, I jumped into it pretty worried, actually. Like, I'm the kind of person, like, if I'm going to do something, I'm all in. So I just overnight clean the pantry out, and originally I started off gluten free, and I did that for about a week, and then Pete Evans was on TV and the paleo way, and I was like, oh, the paleo, like that's kind of in this book what it explained to do. So after about a week of just being gluten free, I thought, stuff it, I'm really gonna go the whole hog. So I got some of his books, and as well as all the information on the internet. There's so much information out there. Yeah, I went 100% paleo, and like literally, I got healthy so fast. Like a matter of weeks, my health turned around, and it's been a couple of years now, and I'm still doing the same thing. I'd say, yeah, I'm still. I don't like to label it, but it's just what everyone knows it as, is paleo, like the caveman diet.
No, absolutely.
And I guess it works. I'm still here, so I haven't had any health issues since doing it. So hopefully my thyroid won't give me any more issues later on. But yeah,
it's interesting you say there about gluten over. Well, even the integrative practitioner I went to, we cut out gluten and dairy for 3 months because they were triggers. My thyroid function was going down as opposed to up, and being away from that kicked it back into gear. But Be Pure NZ, Ben Warren in New Zealand, he often talks about that gluten and thyroid link, and the first step is sort of the gluten breaks down the gap junctions in your gut, so that creates leaky gut, and then, like you say, those gluten hormone or proteins mimic the thyroid hormone, and your thyroid is what filters your brain, and so it either creates a overimmune action, like in your case, and you leach out all this thyroid hormone and feel like crap. And from an optometry perspective, we sometimes see people with big googly eyes, and that's never good. Or the other way, and you go lose all your thyroid function, and your adrenal glands go down, and you end up knackered and can't, your heart rate goes crazy, and you can't do exercise. And that was where I was heading. So it's pretty amazing that a simple thing like a bit of bread can give people so much grief, I guess, mate. And so from that, you said you're working in the coal mines, and then when I spoke to you, sort of asking how you doing this travel around, you said you're quite good with money in the coal mines, and you took off to Africa for 4 months. What did that sort of involve, mate?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, well, actually, that's a funny story in itself. I'd done the paleo for a while, and I'd fixed my health, and I was feeling pretty good. But the funny thing is when you sort of take on the health journey, you kind of stumble into more things, and there's always something you can try, or there's like you can always better yourself or improve yourself. It's like the curse of being healthy, I guess. And so like as I got healthier, I realized that shift work and doing night shift and just the environment of a mine site is not particularly healthy itself. And I didn't want to quit my job at the time, because obviously like coal mining's pretty good money. So I decided, I thought, stuff it up. I hadn't really had many holidays or time off the whole time I'd worked in the mine. So I thought, I'll have a few months off and I'll see how I feel, and that'll be the decider whether I quit my job or not. So yeah, I took nearly 4 months off, went to Africa, probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. It is amazing over there. Yeah, just the people and obviously the animals. Everyone goes to see the animals. So yeah.
No, what part of Africa were you in?
Actually, excluding Egypt and a few of those countries up there, I started in Kenya, and basically spiraled my way all the way down to the south. So I've pretty much nearly seen all of Africa. Yeah. I actually, I sort of did a bit of a tour, but I don't know if you'd still want to call it a tour. Basically, I traveled in a truck and I slept in a tent every night. And it's funny enough, I don't know, I guess over here you think of Africa and when you go there, you think you're always going to be protected, or there's going to be a barrier between you and the animals. But there was one night we were there, and on New Year's actually, and the hyenas run into directly on the stroke of midnight. We had a full pack of hyenas run into the camp, and there's people running everywhere. And then after my nerves calmed down and went to bed, like there was lions and stuff sniffing the tent. Like I've never experienced anything like that before. It was that aside, it was still the best thing I've ever done. Like I've got so many stories I could tell you about how I nearly died over there.
Pick one, because it's always good to hear people's near-death experiences, especially when they're on a health journey.
Rightio. I'll make mine animal related. so everyone, when you hear of Africa, like everyone hears about hippos being the most dangerous animal in Africa, and they are so correct. Like, all up, I guess you could say I nearly got killed by hippos 3 times, but the most memorable one, we were in the Okavango Delta in these little dugout, little wooden canoes. I don't know if canoe is the right word for it, but these little wooden boats. And it was like they've been experiencing like a bit of a drought over there at the time. So obviously the hippos in the waterways were a lot more concentrated. And it was on my birthday too. So we're cruising through the Okavango Delta. And just out of the middle of nowhere, this hippo just launched out, and it couldn't decide there was a few other canoes in the water, and the hippo couldn't decide out of the 2 canoes which one to attack. So it kind of launched through the middle of the canoes, and the guy that was steering the canoe, he speared us into the reeds. And it's like honestly the most terrified I've ever been in my life. Like you could just hear the beat; it was so close. And the fella just said to us, he's like, "Just don't even breathe." So we sat there for a couple minutes, and anyway, we didn't know what happened to the other people in the kayak. The canoe. Like we didn't know if they got killed or not, because hippos don't muck around. Like when they see you, they just kill. That's their thing. Like they're just protecting themselves and they're young and that. But anyway, after a few minutes, we ended up just lifting the kayak out of the water, and it was like a few hours later we ended up meeting up with the other people and found out they were right. But yeah, I'll never forget that, like how close it was. I could smell the thing. It was that close. Anyway.
What sort of scale does a hippo compare to? Like an SUV, or what are we talking?
Probably like a Land Cruiser or a 4-wheel drive. Yeah, they're pretty big.
Jeepers. No, that wouldn't be fun. And so you said you're on a sort of touring around with a truck. Was that with yourself or with a few people, or how did you go about that?
It was just actually, it's a funny story too. It was just a last minute decision. I was just on the internet and thinking about somewhere where to go on a holiday, and I was going to go to America or just somewhere normal where everyone would normally go. And then I thought, you know what, stuff it. I'm just going to go to Africa, because I'm sure everyone has watched The Lion King when they're a kid, and it's pretty embarrassing to say that's where I got the inspiration from. But I just got on the internet, found the longest tour that I could do, which was about 4 months.
Yeah,
booked it, and then I didn't tell my parents until about 2 weeks before I flew away, because I just knew it's a pretty touch and go kind of place. So anyway, I think I had about 2 weeks after I booked the ticket, and I was on a plane to Africa, and spent the next 4 months there just by myself, traveling around in this big old truck.
Nice, brother. And so, could you pinpoint one thing why that was the best thing you've ever done?
I guess, I guess everyone kind of travels, but I don't know, maybe not everyone goes to somewhere out of the ordinary. Like most Australians go to Bali or, like a typical Euro trip or something like that, which is nothing wrong with that, like at all. That's great. But I just wanted to do something out of the box, and yeah, for whatever reason, Africa was where I landed. So
no, that's epic, mate. Continuing the animals theme a bit closer to home, you've managed to find a little dingo. Did it befriend you, or you befriended it, or how did that go down, mate?
Well, that's a funny story. I guess I'll get a bit woo-woo, but I actually I'm a bit of a bow hunter, so obviously used to shoot everything, and obviously I shot a lot of dingoes in my time, and for whatever, and that was there's just the mindset that all dingoes are pests and that for livestock, which is understandable if you're a farmer. I guess that's the way you're going to see it. And I weird enough, I had this dream once that I couldn't kill dingoes anymore, and one day I'd rescue one. It was the silliest thing ever. I thought, that's so silly, but for whatever reason, I really took it on. I thought, no, I really can't kill dingoes anymore, and I just stopped doing it. And then anyway, I happened to be traveling through the Victorian high country, and I shook my head straight away. I drove over this hill, and it was a pretty remote spot, so it would have died. It was completely malnourished, this little dingo pup. But anyway, I drove over this hill, and then it was just laying in the middle of the road, like basically, hours away from death.
Yeah.
And I don't know who rescued who, but I hopped out of the car and picked it up. Like, it never tried to bite me or attack me or anything. Like, that's what, at first I was like, it obviously, it looked like a dingo, but I was like, this thing could be a domesticated dog. It was so friendly. Anyway, I fed it up, and the rest is kind of history. I'd love to have a dingo with me, but there's a few legalities of having a wild dingo, so I had to give it away to an animal sanctuary. But
what did they say when you turned up with the dingo, brother?
But actually, it was a bit of a shock, because I think the lady said it's the first time anyone's ever rescued a dingo ever. So I really, they were kind of speechless, and I didn't really know what to do either. But they just, I guess, with the legality of a dingo, I guess I did the right thing by giving it to an animal sanctuary. So they send me updates now on the little fella, and I get to see his progress, and as he grows up, and it turns out it could be a pure alpine dingo. So they're a bit bigger than the typical dingo that most people would think of. They're really, really big dogs, like, if not bigger than a pig dog, or equivalent to a pig dog in size. So it's not what most people would consider a dingo. But anyway, so it works out pretty good. I'll hopefully all goes well for him, and I'll go get to catch up with him again in my travels one day.
Nice. So for those who don't sort of understand dingoes in Australia, like, originally they're obviously indigenous, and now they're sort of interbred with a whole bunch of wild dogs. So, and like you said, they're a perceived threat to livestock. How, are they protected? Like you say, you hand it into a sanctuary, but nobody tends to do that. What's the sort of perception of a dog that roams around the bush and in some ways causes trouble, but in another way is something that was once and still is partly indigenous to the country?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like in Australia, we have so many pest and feral animals, and in most states of Australia, the dingo falls into that category too, because of the fact that a lot of dingoes have now interbred with wild dogs, so they're considered wild dogs now. But I guess you can understand that if you're a farmer and you have livestock, wild dogs can be a bit of a problem. But there's such a misconception between a wild dog and a dingo. Like, I was the same. I've only just recently learned myself that I don't know if you know, in Australia there's an island called Fraser Island, mm-hmm. and it's like the last sanctuary for pure dingoes.
Right.
And I thought that island was the last dingoes in Australia, but actually is a few pockets of wild dingoes left in Australia, and in the Northern Territory, dingoes are protected there. So there's a good population of purebred wild dingoes there. But I think most states, they're just classed as wild dogs. So it's such a grey area.
That protection in the Northern Territories, is that anything to do with Aboriginal culture, or just they've made that decision?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. It's I'm not sure exactly if they're protected everywhere or just in national parks, and I'm not sure if it's an Aboriginal thing or not. But yeah, I'm not too sure myself on that one.
It's all good. So what other animals do you enjoy picking up? We've mentioned the turtles.
Yeah, I've sort of taken on the nickname the Turtle Man. I never meant for that to happen, but for whatever reason, I just happen to I have a bit of a thing. I've worked out a bit of a knack for catching turtles, I should say. And anyway, so I've worked that out, and I've got plenty of photos of my turtle catches, and over the time now, everyone calls me the Turtle Man. So, but I don't know, like, getting into the animal catching, I guess, if you want to know where it all began, when I was a young fella, I don't know, you would have had Steve Irwin on the telly over there when you were a kid, did you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess. Love him or hate him, I used to watch a lot of him when I was a kid, and as a kid, like my grandparents and my parents were always up in arms because I'd always be bringing frogs and lizards and spiders and snakes and stuff back into the house, and I was it wasn't real popular, but I guess as I've grown up, I kind of got away from that sort of stuff. So as a kid, like, I was always terrorizing animals and rolling rocks and all that sort of thing. And then as I've got older, I got away from it. And it's funnily enough, as I've sort of taken on my health journey, for whatever reason, I've started to take an interest back in animals again. And like, I don't know if catching them is the right word, but I always seem to have animal encounters, and yeah.
So I guess that probably answers our question of what was Adam like as a 5-year-old that shows through today, mate.
Sorry, mate.
No, you're good. You're good. I just thought of that as you brought it back to where it all began, mate. What's the itch that you're scratching about not working anymore and being out in the wild, and it's all the post you'd love to start making your own clothes and things. What's the itch that you're scratching to go deep into this caveman survival thing?
Right, yeah. I guess the healthier I get in body and mind, like the journey that I'm on, the further I get away from what's normal, the healthier and happier I seem to be. So obviously there was a lot of things that fixed my health. Like I guess I can't attribute it all to paleo. Like, there was spending a lot of time in nature and exercise and a lot of other sort of stuff. But there's really something about, I don't know, being in nature that's so healing, and getting away from what's normal, and through that, I guess and there's also this thing, like, years ago in culture, I guess, if you want to look at the Indians or the Aboriginals, there's like this trial of manhood that people used to go through. And as silly as it sounds, I kind of feel that I'm going through that myself now, and because it's not a thing anymore. And I think a lot of the guys are missing that. So I'm kind of I've taken it upon myself to go on this sort of spiritual journey, or like a, what's the word for it, or Aboriginals called it walkabout.
yeah.
To just get back to nature, and part of that is getting away from everything that's that you could buy, I guess, like getting back to making everything. So as I'm out in the bush, hunting my own food, making the most of everything, like using all of the animal, and that's where that sort of started, was harvesting the animal and not wasting anything. So using the skins to make clothes, and the further I go down this rabbit hole of holistic health and the caveman journey I'm on, the more of that stuff that I want to make and use. And yeah, I have no idea where it's going to end, but at this stage, I'm going to eventually, like, I don't know how long I'll do it for, but at this stage, I'm going to get rid of all my clothes and just make everything from natural things you can find in the bush, whether it's plants or animal skins. I don't know how far down this rabbit hole I'm going to go.
No, that's awesome, man. And you touched on that we lack this, I don't know, coming of age or whatever it is, and it's something I've been contemplating since finishing university, thinking about my time in university and some of the stupid decisions I made. You know, you go to a university hall and you're being mentored by people who are 1 year older than you, who have no idea either, and it's all caught up in drinking and you know, a sense of freedom, but there's not the same, I don't know, guide or influence from people that have done it. And I guess that's what is quite attractive about watching what you're doing on your Instagram, is that you're taking it back to nature, and even if we're not part of it, we get to witness it and feel that level of nature. You've been fishing now. Is it you're only going to do hand lines, or do you get a rod out there?
Well, I'm not sure about that one yet. I might keep the fishing rods. Yeah, just touching on that though, I guess. Yeah, there's like a thing that, like, definitely in my travels and my journeys so far, there's one thing that's for sure, that no one has it all figured out. No one has the answers, and there's so many ways to health and happiness that one person's journey is so different to the next person's. And I've just chosen this journey because of my, passion of nature and the caveman thing, and it just felt right. So I just felt that this is what's best for me. So, but yeah, with the fishing rods, I guess I might make a spear. Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And do you think the inland of Australia is big. Will you stay coastal or go to the mountains or mix it up? You've got one of the best trucks around, so you're pretty mobile.
Well, actually, funny enough, I'm all new to Instagram and this whole world. I've actually been traveling for a fair while now, so not to brag, I've actually done all of Australia. I've recently just come back from Tasmania, so I've ticked all of Australia off my list. And at the moment, I'm in Queensland again now, getting my 4-wheel drive ready for a trip to Arnhem Land, which is the most sort of remote Aboriginal place in Australia. Like, obviously you need permission to go into the Aboriginal land there, and that's the last place in Australia for me to see. And then I've completely seen all of Australia. So after I do that, I have no doubt I'm not going to stop traveling. I guess I'll just do another tour around Australia, coastal and inland. It's all so beautiful. I guess I'll have to do it all again.
Nice. You hear Adam Greentree going on about Arnhem Land. He gets to go in there because he does contract work with the Aboriginal people. But how did you manage to get in there, mate?
Yeah, well, I'm not 100% sure yet. I've got a few mates in there, so I guess that always helps. But whether you have mates or not, you can always get into Arnhem Land, as long as you I think you go to the council building and you have paperwork. You just sign the right paperwork and forms, and if it all lines up and you get accepted, you're allowed in. So I guess that's the way I'm going to go.
Nice, mate. I haven't read it yet. I've got it sitting right in front of me right now, but you keep hearing Joe Rogan talk about Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe, and that nobody ever came out of these primitive civilizations into our Western culture, but people often go out and don't want to come back. Is there much of attraction from the Aboriginal people in Australia? I know there's sort of a bad rap and the odd bit of bad blood going on, but they're powerful people, and you hear stories of them running for days and days, no worries, just to go to somebody's funeral. What do you sort of see the Aboriginal people of Australia as?
Yeah, right. So through my travels of Australia, I've been lucky enough to become friends with a few Aboriginals up in the Gulf, which is sort of far north Queensland, and through that friendship, I've had a lot of, I guess you could call it, access to uncharted Aboriginal land, and got to have some experiences with some Aboriginal tribes, and that also includes hunting and fishing, and they're just a really misunderstood people, I guess. Like there's such a camaraderie and tribe and like friendship that they have amongst each other that a lot of people will never understand. So it's I guess I seen a sign one day, and it just said every culture had one thing in common, which was time spent alone in the wilderness. And when I seen that sign, like something resonated, and that's drawing me up north back to the Aboriginal people. Like they, I think they have some things figured out that would help me in my journey, and I'd love to get up there, and they have such a deep knowledge of the land and such a connection with the land that sort of fits into everything that I'm about. And they have so much that I'd love to learn, and I'm just hoping that when I go north and meet with Aboriginal people, that hopefully they'll share some of their knowledge with me.
Absolutely. And that was one of the greatest things that in the Magic Pool, back to Pete Evans, was when those people up north talked about their ancestors and showed pictures of their ancestors and the health of those people that are connected with the land. You're exactly right. They look like they've got something sussed out there that we don't know about, and especially what was highlighted in the Magic Pill is perhaps our Western culture is poisoning a lot of these people. So the people that you've been spending time with, what are they sort of projecting in terms of vitality?
Well, I'd have to say that the people that I was currently mates with, there's still the thing, like at the shops, I guess if you get into holistic health, the food that they're eating sort of more processed food. So there is still a lot of unhealthy people in those communities, and I don't know, like I guess that's not all figured out yet, but through a couple of the guys that I was hanging around with up there, like they are aware of that now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the young guys that I was hanging with, like it's a real, I guess it's a work in progress. So people are people, and most people are going to go for the easiest option. But I guess I was lucky enough for the guys in the Gulf that I was hanging with. We did a lot of hunting for food. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're a pretty fit bunch of lads.
Were you a hunter before you started this journey? Like you said, bow hunting, that's quite a difficult task. Is that something that you were passionate about before, or is this something that's developed out of necessity for being out in the wilderness?
I guess I was pretty lucky. For a lot of years now, I've been a bow hunter and got to refine my skills, and sort of not known as a bow hunter, but I've been doing it for a while, and then taking on this sort of the journey I'm on now, traveling Australia and trying to live off the land. The bow hunting has been such a vital skill, and actually, I'm not too sure if people know the difference between a compound and a traditional recurve bow. But I guess I started off with a compound bow, and just recently I've kind of parked it up to take on more of a challenge of a traditional bow, which is a more primitive style of archery. So that's the new challenge that I'm getting into now with archery. So I guess I don't know what the step after that is.
I was listening to, again, Joe Rogan. They were talking about how with the recurve, you're in control of the tension. And then what are you using to rest the arrow on? Is it your finger, or do you have a little rest? And how do you sort of have a target with your recurve bow? Because obviously your compounds, you can even get scopes of different distances and everything. How have you sort of stripped that back?
Yeah, okay. So I don't want to knock bow hunters, because obviously I'm a bow hunter. But you hear about a lot of people that shoot the compound bows, and they do say they're a challenge and whatnot, and I guess they are, like, compared to guns and anything like that. A compound bow is a challenge. But to be honest, I actually was struggling. I wasn't finding it much of a challenge anymore, because the compound bows we have these days, like, they're so fast, they're so accurate, they have all these pins. You know, they're so complex and refined now. Like, they're basically, like, they don't take much. Like, it's not like, there's a bit of skill involved, but there's not that much skill involved. So when you step it back to a traditional bow, you've got no sights, stabilizers. There's nothing. It's just a bow, a string, and an arrow. So, and in that too, there's a few different ways you can shoot it. And I think the method that you'd say that I'm doing is called instinctive archery. So I don't really aim anything up. I kind of just draw the bow back and just look and let go. And obviously, when you shoot a bow, a lot of times you kind of get a shot cycle going, and you can kind of predict somewhat where the arrow is going to go. But it's a lot more challenging than a compound bow that all those guys kind of shoot.
Yeah, and so what sort of range are you confident with the recurve, man?
I had a rule, even with my compound bow, 30 meters was my maximum effective range. So anything over 30 meters, I wouldn't take the shot. Which, like, obviously people are doing like 100-meter shots and 70-meter shots. Like, there is some people do some pretty big shots. I think even 40 meters is a pretty confident shot, but I just chose 30 meters with the compound. And with the traditional bow, I've sort of stepped my range back to 20 meters at this stage. So anything further than 20 meters is safe at the moment.
Nice. And so with your recurve bow, your traditional bow, do the animals still get the jump on the shot, or with the shorter range and probably is it quieter, the shot?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit quieter. Like, there's so many things you can tweak on a bow to make them quiet. So there's not too much difference. Like, the velocity of the arrow is a little bit slower with a recurve, and which factors in a few more things. But I'd have to say they're pretty close to being the same. Like, there's not much of a difference after you shoot the arrow. Yeah, you can pretty much expect the same thing.
No, nice, mate. So we were sort of chatting before we got started about things that I've seen you doing, and one of them was catching up with some couple of legends who are touring the country themselves, the chill seekers. What does the sort of Wim Hof technique sort of mean to you, and how often do you implement it? What do you try to find in that practice?
Yeah. Oh, the chill seeker guys, they actually, not to give them a plug, but they're stuff I'll give them a plug. They're on tour at the moment, the chill seekers. So yeah, they're a really cool bunch of lads. Mark and Zane, and I know you know Mark, and he is a legend. And actually, I stumbled across those fellas by accident. I'd like, I'm always looking for the next thing, like maybe something to improve myself more. And I read this book, and then I kind of stumbled across breathing. And I'd heard of Wim Hof, but I thought he was just some crazy Dutchman that did ice baths. I didn't realize there was so much more to the story than that. And through Googling breathing, I stumbled across the Wim Hof and the Wim Hof method. And actually, the first time I did it, like, I don't know how to explain it to someone that's never tried it, but definitely had like this rush of energy, and it was like this crazy sensation. And I thought, oh wow, there's something more to this. And I don't know how I felt about the cold showers at that time, but I wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. With anything you find on the internet, sometimes you never know if the information's correct or not. So I booked into a course in Melbourne, and Mark and Zane were running the course on the Wim Hof method. And I went to the course and run into those fellas, and I guess it's funny enough, through that meeting by chance, I've made a couple of great mates with the Wim Hof instructors. So yeah, it's been a pretty cool journey, and I've done a lot of ice baths now. I won't lie, I don't know if I'd say it's easy, but I've done a lot of them now, and I practice the breathing every day. So, and also, I guess anyone out there listening, I don't know. So there's like the Wim Hof method, and once you get into that, there's more levels to it. In regards to the breathing, there's like maybe stuff that you won't find on the internet, like higher levels. And I was pretty lucky to run into Mark and Zane, the Chill Seeker lads. So they've been pretty generous mates, and have showed me more to the Wim Hof method than most people would probably get to see or understand.
And is that taking you into sort of a transcendental meditation state sort of stuff, and getting you sort of out of body-ish, or what could you elaborate any more? Obviously it's probably something to be experienced rather than try and voice.
Yeah. It's really funny, like obviously back when I was a coal miner, I was never into any of this sort of what's the word for it, woo-woo hippie sort of stuff. And it's funny how I've turned into a hippie now. But I guess with the breathing, yeah, there's definitely it's different for everyone. Everyone experiences something different, but through starting the Wim Hof breathing, I guess you could say, I'm going to regret saying this, I guess my third eye has been opened.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been tapping into all that side of things. And definitely I'd say, I guess I've had out of body experiences. When you do the Wim Hof method with a group of people, it's like a different energy that you would experience by yourself. So I guess I don't know how to explain it. Like every cell in your body vibrates, if that makes sense. Like it's this really warm feeling that comes over you. I honestly don't know how to explain it, but it's something else.
And warmth is exactly right, or else there's no way that man could stand in ice for 50 odd minutes. So. Well, what did he swim? 60 meters underwater, under an ice cap. So, warmth is definitely one of the things that it provides. But I know you're talking on a deeper level. And one of his sort of, I don't know, messages that he talks about is like being happy and healthy. And he sort of went back, like yourself, to nature after a period of depression. Unfortunately for him, he lost his partner to suicide, and he went into a deep depression, and went back to nature, back to the thing that he knew about when he was a kid, of jumping into cold lakes, and like I said, developed this feeling of euphoria, and decided that there was something to it. When you said you're in a sort of, you became anxious and sort of depression, what things took you out of that?
In the beginning, I guess, when I first started getting sick, the diet change definitely helped. Like it calmed me down a lot. And then I started, like, at the time, it's so silly looking back at it now, with the mind frame I was in, I started doing yoga and stretching and sort of relaxation stuff with like meditation as well. And that helped dramatically. And at the time, it was this silly mind frame I was in, that stuff wasn't cool or whatnot. But I've stuck with all that sort of stuff, and that has been vital in my health anyway. A lot of the relaxation techniques, mainly yoga, I'd say, I reckon was the best one for me.
Nice, mate. And I feel like we're missing a little bit of a switch here. Like you say, prior to that, your mind frame as a coal miner was all woo woo. This was no good. Was it just that the fact that you were under threat, that it was, this pain's so bad I've got to do something, or was there something, an intermediate? Was there any guiding light for you or anything like that?
I really don't know how to explain it. I guess it all just came in one big shock. Like, it was nearly overnight how it happened. Like, I don't know. There was no real gradual warning signs.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And did you manage to find out what was the underlying cause of the thyroid disease? Was it just gluten, or did you have some other, obviously
actually, I should have touched on. Yeah, I should have touched on that. Sorry. I think the biggest part of my health and the dramas was gluten, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I found out, I had a lot of the gluten tests done, and at the time I didn't realise, like, through a lot of research now, I've found out that the gluten sensitivity tests that you can have done, I don't know if not very accurate is the word I want to use, but because there's so many proteins in the gluten molecule, if that's the word for it, there's so many that even when you get tested, they might miss some.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say, definitely, yeah, giving up gluten has been one of the biggest things for me. But also, like, even after giving up that, if you're in a job or you're doing something with your life that's not fulfilling and doesn't make you happy, I guess it's like, not everyone can make the change. But I really found that stepping out of my comfort zone, and like, obviously it was so terrifying to quit my job. It was really stepping out of the comfort zone, but that's what I needed, and it's been really helpful. So it's sort of, yeah, that's been very helpful, getting away from, I guess, with the position that I was in, it was a pretty stressful role that I was in. So
what sort of mine were you in?
An open cut coal mine.
Yeah. And so large machinery going around, was that right?
Yeah. I was a machine or a plant operator. So it's kind of funny, yeah, the size of some of the machinery out there, but like, after years spent out there, you get so used to it. It's not even, you don't even bat an eyelid at it anymore, like how big it is.
Mm-hmm. So. And you said you were doing shift work. What sort of, how many nights were you going? And I know I've got a young baby, and my sleep is a bit stuffed up at the moment. And I'm definitely noticing in terms of my skin, and I'm holding in there mentally, but in terms of things that are coming up in my body that are manifesting to say, eventually you'll need to get some sleep, mate. How much was the night shift? And I've heard Rhonda Patrick and Sachin Panda, who's a researcher in circadian rhythm, just really talk about how much of a risk factor that is to your life expectancy and all causes of mortality. What were you involved with in terms of shift work?
I was on a 5 and 5 roster, or equal time roster, I guess. And I guess it sounds pretty cushy, 5 on, 5 off. But after you factor in like a half a day changeover, and then like maybe after you finish your last shift, like a day recovery, it kind of doesn't work out so good. But I guess I was doing 12.5-hour days. So, I mean, all up, I guess it would end up being like a 14-hour day. And it was fun. Like when I first started researching like all this health and you know, caveman diet or paleo, whatever you want to call it, I did a lot of research on the circadian rhythm and how important it was. And at the time, I sort of shrugged it off. I thought, like, I guess I can kind of fix myself around this. But then, actually, by the end of my time in the mines, I would be doing like the most amount of the most night shifts I would do in a row was 3 nights, and I was finding by the end of it, even though I was so healthy, my body just something like, I don't know if it was something to do with my health, but for whatever reason, my circadian rhythm couldn't hit a pattern. Like it just wanted to be awake during the day and asleep at night. So when I do the night shifts, I was like spending like 4 days awake straight, like no sleep. And that helped with my decision to leave the mines, obviously. But yeah, and it's, I guess it's pretty common. Like not everyone gets much sleep through the night shift. So it has to be so detrimental to your health. Mm. And I guess I don't know what shift work you've done. It's a bit of a joke actually amongst everyone that you turn into a bit of a zombie when you're on night shift. Like there's not much going on upstairs.
Yeah, mate. I've worked enough bars, and then also where I'm from down south in Invercargill, we've got an aluminium smelter, which sort of same company as the one in Launceston. And I've did that. It was a 2-day, 2-night, 4 off roster, and yeah, talk about having a hangover without even smelling any alcohol. and you're right. You'd sort of go to sleep for 2 hours, wake up groggy, try your best to get through to the afternoon, and be no good. And that, like I say, the changeover day, you try to get a nap, and then you got to eat, and you're going, well, what do I eat? Do I have dinner now? Do I have breakfast now? And on that circadian rhythm, you've got your master clock, your pineal gland, which relies on light and red light at during the day and blue lights and things, and then you've got your stomach. And if you're sort of feeding at weird times and your liver's releasing insulin in the middle of the night, then your pineal gland's going, what the hell? Where are we at? And that's, I guess, what leads down the road of fatty livers and insulin resistance and the bad health effects that come from it.
Yeah, exactly. On that, with a lot of the guys I worked with and shift workers in general, there's like diabetes and heart issues, high blood pressure, all that seems to, like, everyone I worked with always had issues with all those things, and it definitely has to do with shift work. Like it is actually not like, yeah, people know that they're correlated, but it's funny to see how bad it actually is for your health. But I guess if you got to do it, I'm sure there's ways to make it work, but yeah, it's hard on the body.
Yeah. And back to that session, Bandari has a community research project called My Circadian Rhythm, and I think if you partake in that and you are a shift worker, because they do want to analyze the diets and the sleeping patterns of shift workers and see what they can tweak. They actually give you free advice on little hacks and techniques, and I guess they try to refine your diet to be as low impact as possible, and probably a lot of that stuff has a foundation in paleo and being whole food and getting a broad range of nutrients from fresh foods that are untainted. Mate, what next? Do you think it's still a journey, I gather, and you're still a work in progress?
Yeah, I guess my thing as I travel Australia, like I'm definitely like, I always love to help people or talk to people, or, you know, that's maybe one day, hopefully I can get into some kind of line of work where I'm helping people. But I'm not too sure what's next. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm still on my journey at the moment. So I think I'll go to Arnhem Land and see where that goes. But I really don't think I'm going to give up the traveling or the adventures anytime soon. Yeah, so I guess maybe another trip around Australia, and I'm pretty sure sometime in the future, New Zealand's next on my list of places to go. So
nice, mate.
Yeah, looking forward to coming over there.
Bring a rain jacket. I'll give you that, that bit of advice. That's something that always amuses me, watching these people drive around Australia in commie vans and living in beaches and using surf clubs to shower. I think you could do it in New Zealand, but you get very damp. We've done the North Island and the South Island when I was little, and going up the West Coast, we got the West Coast weather, which was pouring with rain, and sleeping in a tent on sphagnum moss that was soaked wet. So yeah, bring a watertight tent and a good jacket.
Well, I'm glad I've started the Wim Hof method anyway for when I get over there.
Nice, mate. So where can people find you? Where can people see the turtles?
Yeah, I guess everything I have, Facebook and Instagram's just Adam Kavanagh.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, Instagram's Adam_Kavanagh_. But yeah, you'll see it's a guy with a shirt off with the turtles.
Nice, and we'll be sure to link that, of course, man. And as anybody knows, I'll be putting some posts up that will have your links to that post as well. So it should be easy enough to find you. Anything that you'd like to leave anybody with? That person that maybe is going through a health crisis and not getting the answers, what would you say to somebody like that, or say to yourself if you were, looking back before everything hit you?
Yeah, it's funny that the information is sort of out there, but it's hard to sift through, I guess, sometimes. And I've kind of seen it myself with a lot of, like, maybe not so much women, but with a lot of blokes. Like, there really is this thing out there with, like, the tribe and the rite of passage and an initiation, and I don't know, like, I guess I'm going out there to try to find it, and hopefully I'll have some sort of answers for blokes in the future. But at this stage, like, I really think, yeah, there's something about getting back in touch with nature that I think people are so disconnected from, that, yeah, I guess get back to nature is about all.
Absolutely, mate. And I think it's calling my name with these sleepless nights and a little bit of cabin fever, but we'll put that on hold until we get the all clear, because more important things right now. But absolutely, nature's a beautiful place and a healing place, and it's, they may not have the scientific explanation for it, but there's plenty of anecdotes out there of how good it can be. Mate, it was awesome to have you on. We've been chatting a long time via Instagram, back and forth, and
yeah, that's been great. It's been good to finally have a chat.
Absolutely, and if I'm ever in Australia, I'll be looking you up and trying to track you down.
Definitely.
And likewise, if you come over here, hopefully I'm around as well, and we can catch up and have more chats, and, like I say, connect and reiterate that tribal core thing that is going on and so strong for men. So thanks very much.
Sounds great, mate. It's always good to catch up with like-minded people, so I look forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Cheers.